Okay, welcome everyone here today to the agenda briefing session. Just read the disclaimer. Members of the public are advised that recommendations to Council contained within this agenda can be subject to alteration. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until such time as written advice is received confirming Council's decision with respect to any particular issue. Any statement or insinuation of approval regarding any planning or development applications made during an agenda briefing session meeting is not to be taken as notice of approval from the Shire. The Shire advises that anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by Council regarding the application. An audio and or visual record will be made of these proceedings to assist in the taking of minutes. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures and to elders both past and present. Item 2, record of apologies and leave of absence. We have apologies from Councillor Burgoyne, Councillor Boylan, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Caboni. And Councillor Michelle Campbell requested a leave of absence from Sunday the 18th of July 2021 to Saturday 31st of July 2021. But Councillor Campbell will be joining the agenda briefing session via Zoom. Item 3, declarations of members and officers' personal interest. Are there any others that aren't on the screen? Councillor Jackson.
Item 5.1.1, the agreement with Harvey District Tourist Bureau. Whilst it's listed there as part of the budget, the briefing session today has the agreement with the Tourist Bureau. I have conflict of interest. Get this right. A financial conflict of interest, and I'll step out of the chamber.
Okay. Councillor Dickinson.
I also have impartiality for 5.1.1 Harvey District Tourist Bureau Incorporated Management Gender Renewal because I am the council delegate on that, as well as the impartialities listed for the budget adoption. Thank you.
I have an impartiality interest in item 5.1.6, the lease renewal for the Bidding Up Community Association, as I am council rep on that group, and I will stay in chambers and vote on its merits. Councillor Lovett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just in addition to the ones declared previously, since we've now got the Leisure Recreation Park Working Group and I'm chairing that, I need to declare impartiality interest in that for the budget section.
Okay, item 4, deputations. Is there any deputations? Nil. Item 5, officers' reports. 5.1, Chief Executive Officer. 5.1.1, Harvey District Tourist Bureau Incorporated Management Agreement Renewal. We'll just wait for Councillor Jackson to leave the chambers. Any questions? 5.1.1. Councillor Dickinson.
I understand that there's currently a review going into the visitor centre and future management and agreements going forward. So just making sure that well, just wondering how this is all going to proceed, really. Thank you.
Through the chair. So there's been a few alterations to the management agreement to allow for, I suppose, a more consistent communication between the Shire and the Tourist Bureau, including conducting a monthly meeting with the Shire to provide that mechanism for communication. There's also a clause in terms of the expiration of the agreement, so at any time that it becomes unsuitable for either party, then the management agreement can be terminated within 3 months. So there are extra clauses, I suppose, in the management agreement to allow for a more flexible arrangement between the Shire and the Bureau.
Councillor Campbell. Just wait, Michelle, you're still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
All good.
Hello everyone. Just wondering about the management of the shrine. Is that still being undertaken by the Tourist Bureau?
Yes, that's correct.
So does that need to be detailed in this agreement at all? And if it is, I've missed it then?
Councillor Campbell, it's not detailed in this management agreement. There was an existing management agreement for the management of the shrine. I'll just have to confirm with the Director, Community and Lifestyle when that one expires and whether that will need to be renewed also for a 6-month period.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, through the chair, that the management agreement for the shrine is going to be will need to be reviewed at the end of the 6 months.
Okay then. And I did send an email through, but I just wanted to ask if you could consider the wording around 3H of the agreement, which is maintain a website and a social media account, whether we could change the wording a bit to ensure that they keep the website up to date and the information current, because I have some concerns about the content of the current website, and I would hope that it improves over time. So can we consider changing the wording a bit on that subparagraph regarding the website?
Through the chair, I'm happy to look at expanding on H. I might do that in consultation with marketing and comms and see if they've got some advice with relation to how we maintain and update our social media and websites.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Any other questions with 5.1.1? No? Could someone, Ollie, could you please get Councillor Jackson from outside, please? Ta, thanks. Item 5.1.2, draft corporate business plan. Any questions? All happy? Okay, item 5, Councillor Bromwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just those two items I mentioned to you earlier, the Crohn's Bridge come up in the schematic twice. It's got the same amount and everything in there, so I'm thinking it might be a total.
Yeah, thanks for flagging that. And thanks to other, there were other councillors that also picked up on a few bits and pieces in between Concept Forum and here, so thank you for bringing those to my attention. What had happened, you're right, it was purely just formatting in a couple of instances where we imported quite a significant amount of information from an Excel spreadsheet into the design software. So we have actually tidied everything up, corrected that it was a repetition, and there was also another instance that you raised where the rows had actually overlaid each other, so were hidden. So that's all been tidied up.
Okay, item 5.1.3, Council Actions Register 2021. Any questions or queries? Item 5.1.4, Lease Agreement, Mr. E.J.M. and Mrs. D.M. Durand. Is there any questions? Item 5.1.5, Policy Review, Code of Conduct Complaints. Any questions? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I was just wondering, is it the yes? Okay. If that's the case, could I just clarify? As this policy relates to the code of conduct of members, how would that actually work if we've got 3 councillors nominated, 3 as delegates? So that's basically half the members. So is it the presumption that those 6 may not become subject of a complaint into the future? Just wondering how it's actually going to work if we've actually got people that are already nominated, as opposed to selecting council members if we actually have a situation in the future where we need to arrange a committee. That was all. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Simpson. I suppose the design of having 3 proxy members and 3 delegates is that if the complaint was about one of the delegates, then they would step out and the proxy would step in. The terms of reference only allows for 3 councillors on the committee, so if you had an interest, you would opt out and a deputy would be requested to opt.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Beach.
Yeah, it's more of a comment, and I know we're supposed to be questioning, so I'll finish it off with a question. On page 3 of the policy document, which is 121 in the attachments, 3.1.2, I don't know, I'm being pedantic with this, but it says the application of this policy should lead to consistency. When someone says should lead to consistency, it raises doubts in my mind as to whether it will lead to consistency. So whether or not the word should could be reviewed, I guess.
I'm happy to take that advice. This template is to the WALGA template to the letter, so they've used the word should, and I imagine that's because sometimes consistency doesn't happen. But happy to change it perhaps to would or will.
I think should's probably appropriate.
If we're looking for consistency, then it should, the word should possibly be replaced with will lead to consistency. That's why we're doing it. So anyway, that's just a comment on that particular line item. Otherwise, I'm reasonably happy.
Councillor Jackson.
I noted just a small typo in the attachment towards the end about, I haven't got it open, sorry. I'll point it out later to you. Thank you.
Okay, any other, Councillor Beach.
Yeah, sorry, and I didn't write these in. It's just been one of those weekends I didn't get able to do it. On page 128, in the second paragraph, it says if the behaviour that is subject of the complaint is alleged to have occurred at a council or committee meeting, could an explanation be given to council or committee meeting in as much as we are now in a council meeting. But is it prior to the meeting and post to the meeting? Is that all included in that part here as well? Because I'm reading that it says occurs at the council or committee meeting. Once this meeting closed, then I would argue the complaint wouldn't fit this definition.
Sure, through the chair. So the reasoning for that is in the regulations. The president or the chair of that meeting has the ability to deal with these issues inside that meeting. So whilst the meeting's under the standing orders, that's where that section would relate to. As soon as standing orders have finished, it's back to being a behavioural complaint and not dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, item 5.1.6, Lease Renewal, Bidding Up Community Association Incorporated. Any questions? Had a couple sent in by Councillor Coleman. I'm very familiar with the situation between these two groups and am concerned that extending the lease will not solve any issues, rather they will continue to fester. At the briefing I would like to know what other groups make use of the BCA clubhouse, what is the legal and liquor licensing position on drinking alcohol in the bowling shed, and 3, why don't we suggest that a lease will only be granted to one overarching organisation to manage the clubhouse, the greens and any other sport related entities wishing to use the premises, i.e. the nearby basketball courts. One overarching organisation can be constitutionally comprised of a number of the original BCA, a number from the bowling club and a number from other organisations if relevant.
So through the chair, the first question in relation to what other groups make use of the BCA clubhouse, there are quite a few. The association, I think, at the last meeting with them had roughly 9 groups, all of different size, that use the facility. Some of them are inside bowls, there are I think some water sports things that happen, there are yoga, so there are varied groups that use that facility. In terms of liquor licensing, this was investigated thoroughly by the Shire. There was a complaint that was raised in relation to that. As far as liquor licensing are concerned, in terms of drinking at the bowling shed, provided that the alcohol is not supplied and is strictly bought by the person who's consuming it, then there's no legality around that, provided that we allow the people to drink on local government property. So we've provided that permission to them to drink there, and that was a compromise to sort of help either club reach an amicable arrangement in terms of consuming liquor outside of the BCA fence line. In terms of why we don't grant a lease to one body to manage, so the BCA's lease had expired in its entirety, but the BBC still had an extension term of 5 years. We sought legal advice with regard to potentially terminating their lease so that we could go out to community groups to see if all wanted to apply to manage the lot. There was no agreement between the two clubs, between the BCA and the BBC. Both would like to manage the entire facility. So the reason that the recommendation is a 1+2+2 is we want to be able to give the clubs a chance over the next year to sort out any disagreements or disputes, get their management model working maybe a little bit more effectively, and then we'll review from there. The lease is a little bit stricter in that we have more capacity to terminate each of the agreements at the end of the year, so we'll be watching a bit more closely this year to make sure that everyone's happy and that the management models are working effectively.
Any questions? Councillor Campbell. You're on mute, Councillor Campbell. There you go.
Thank you. Occupational hazard at the moment. Just a question about, and I know that Councillor Beach has raised this before, about the annual rent payment of $1. And I thought there was some discussion around the payment being made on demand as opposed to in advance and the first day of each and every lease year, because obviously if they don't pay their $1, then they would be in breach of the lease, I'm assuming. So is there any appetite to change that wording around, or do we leave it as it is?
Sure, through the chair. So I did go back and seek further legal advice in relation to that, and it is just to provide consideration. So it binds the contract essentially. So our intention would be to leave that in the lease agreement.
Thank you.
Councillor Beach.
Well, if that's the case, and I know this is only for 1 year, so it wouldn't apply to this, but for the other ones that we say go for 5 years, why don't we collect $5 at the beginning of the term and just, that's it for the rest of the lease, and you've done it the once. And I mean, they're going to collect $1 for 1 year on here, but you know, just to throw an idea towards you.
Sure. So provided that there wasn't a condition like this where it was 1 + 2 + 2, we would probably consider that appropriate. It does, however, bind that consideration for that 5 years. So we've agreed, in essence, that basically nothing's going to go wrong for 5 years, and
No, sorry, I didn't mean for the lease extensions. I just meant for the period of the initial lease. So this one's 3 years, so it doesn't matter. But a lot of the leases we have are 5 + 5, say. So for that first 5 years, give us $5. Here's your receipt. And we'll chase for the other 5 in another 5 years if we renew.
Sure, we can.
That was only a suggestion, because I do know, treasurers are going to be running around looking for $1 every year, and they'll forget or whatever.
Councillor Campbell, did you have another question?
No.
All good?
All good, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, no more questions. Okay, item 5.1.7, lease agreement, Binning Up Bowling Club. Any questions? Okay, 5.2, infrastructure services. Item 5.2.1, application to keep more than the prescribed number of dogs. Is there any questions regarding that? All good? It is a confidential report. Neil? Okay, item 5.2.2, Herbert Road, Harvey Traffic Management, further report number 3. Any questions? Councillor Beach.
Yeah, just in relation to the speed cushions that are up near Fry Road on Herbert Road there, they look, according to the report, going to be removed, and a raised asphalt platform or plateau. Mr. Loxton, is that going to be similar to the one by the railway line in Utica Road, same height, or are you anticipating it to be a little bit higher?
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, look, obviously I think the cushions that are there now have achieved something in terms of trying to differentiate between the rural and the urban zone. A lot of people, it'll be a raised red asphalt, not too severe, obviously, but obviously it'll be a deterrent, both a visual and some sort of height to it.
Oh, similar to the railway crossing?
Something
or one
like
near
that.
to the railway
Something
crossing?
like that, yeah. And also, I've been discussing on main roads about better advanced warning signs, similar to what we've got on Uduck Road as you're getting into the 60 zone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Item 5.2.3, tender T032021, pruning, mulching and removal of trees. Any questions? Okay, item 5.2.4, Marriott Road, dedication of freehold lot 41 on plan 17392 and lot 42 on plan 17393. Is there any questions? Okay, item 5.3, sustainable development. Item Councillor Campbell.
Thank you.
No, you put yourself back on mute, Michelle.
There we go, sorry. Just wondering if the Shire is still pursuing the redesignation of Marriott Road to a state road and what the status is on that, because it's still taking some time, isn't it? So I'm just wondering where we're at in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah, look, through the chair, look, as the report states, we did write to the Minister of Transport some time ago, and we did get a letter. But obviously, things move quite slowly in that regard. I mean, I know main roads did a review of the metropolitan area, and they were also then doing a review of the regional areas. And while they may decide to classify a road as a primary distributor, which is a main road, it could take 5 to 10 to 15 years to actually come to fruition. I think this one here for us is quite important, hence our recommendation to, we don't mind, getting this section of Marriott Road dedicated, subject to getting some sort of commitment that it will be classified as a state road. And I think we have to approve the dedication, but if we're saying subject to, then the ball's well and truly in their court to come back to us and give us a time frame, and then when we report back to council, we may agree with that time frame or we may not.
Thank you.
We almost need a plan B. Item 5.3, sustainable development. 5.3.1, amendment to local development plan Edenlife. Any questions? At 5.4, corporate services. 5.4.1, listing of accounts paid May 2021. Any questions or queries? Councillor Bromham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry I didn't send this question in, but it's I just wondered, and I couldn't see it when I looked through the figures, but I just wondered what was the impact from the Bunbury-Harvey Regional Council perspective, how it costs when we pass that people could have a trailer load of mulch. Do we know that yet, or I couldn't see it in there, that's why I asked.
Yeah, it was reported through in the weekly update. Mr. Jones, have you got that figure available? I believe it was $1,900.
Yeah, I'm just panicking right now to find it on my own. My apologies. Just have some interlude music. I'll be there very soon. Sorry, if I take a slow walk.
Monty Python would have been proud of it.
$1,960.
Oh, there we go. Same thing.
All right,
answer the
cheers.
question.
That's extra, is it, on top of the normal cost?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's about just under 100 users of that uptake of the free scoop of compost.
Cheers, thank you.
Any other questions? All good, Councillor Beach?
Oh, good this week, yes.
Item 5.4.2, financial statements as at 31st of May 2021. Any questions or queries? No? Item 5.4.3, 2021-2022 budget adoption. Any questions or queries? Councillor Beach.
Well, we're talking about the budget, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, notice that it's in the format that it needs to be in. I just asked Mr. Winter, from what we reviewed, whenever we reviewed it a couple of weeks ago, and the changes that we suggested or whatever, nothing else material has changed within the document. I did search for a couple of things and I found, because I was a little bit worried something got snuck in there, but you didn't. So I'm happy with that, but I just wanted to clarify that the document is, for all intents and purposes, the same as the one that we reviewed.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and through Mr. President. In the item we've listed the changes that were made, so there were no other material or really other items other than what's included in the agenda item itself, and we've listed a few in there. For example, consultants, there was an adjustment there. Harvey drink container regatta had been missed out, so that was added in of $10,000. There was a little bit in relation to branding that was increased for the Harvey Rec Centre. The Brunswick Rec Centre tiling, Councillor Bromham had raised that previously as a duplication, and it was a duplication, so we were able to recover $10,000 for that. And the other one that we had listed there was, we hadn't included a contribution from the Shire of Dardenne towards bridge maintenance, and there was previously an agreement that they would contribute 25%, so we've included that in, and that helped fund those couple of changes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Item 5.5, Community and Lifestyle. 5.5.1, Shire of Harvey Community Safety and Crime Prevention Plan 2021 to 2026. Any questions? Okay, item 5.5.2, Shire of Harvey Youth Collective and Youth Task Force. Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, I was just wondering, with the meetings of the Harvey Youth Collective and the Youth Task Force, will they be held in different localities in the Shire, similar to like we have alternate months with council meetings? And also I was wondering if there would be any assistance for the delegates to attend with transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, these will be conducted across all of the Shire's places and locations, and provisions for transport will be provided. Further to your question, we've been providing that service through to young people and have costed out $1,500 in the last financial year to the youth plan, and again in the ongoing financial years to continue to assist. The youth strategy also identifies the opportunity to advocate for an expanded public transport network, which is actually coming out quite strongly in all of our strategies. So it's something we need to do.
Any other further questions? Item 5.5.3, Shire of Harvey Access and Inclusion Plan, Even Better Together, 2021 to 2026. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you. I know that previously in the community, volunteer service groups have been pretty active in providing services for people that they're aware of that need assistance. So are they going to be given a copy of this and approached and included on how it's going to work forward so that everybody's on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you again. Through the Chair, the Access and Inclusion Plan, if it's adopted through Council, will be provided to all community groups. An effort will be made to give to all community groups. It will be provided in the Shire's civic administration buildings and libraries, and will also be available online. A key principle on page 432 of your attachments is partnerships. So actually working with those groups into the future to implement the strategy will be really important.
Councillor Campbell. No, you've done it again, Councillor Campbell. We're going to have to find you again.
I know. Action 1.6.1 of the plan talks about a grant program for local businesses. Could someone just outline how they actually see that working? And I suppose the second part to that question is why we would consider that council would allocate a fund like this to a local business to undertake accessibility works to their business. I would have thought that would be their responsibility. But I'm interested in the grant side. If someone could just fill me in a bit on that side. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. I have some references for you for this one so that you may like to consider it over the coming week. Objective 1.6, improve the accessibility of local businesses with the Shire, and Action 1.6.1 was a direct response to the engagement through community. There was a experiential workshop with Council on the 13th of July. You'll find the information of that on page 481. All of these supporting information is what has led to that action being included in the strategy. The action lists to investigate the potential to implement. 30-Foot Drop, who provided the experiential workshop with Council, actually worked with the Shire of Capel to implement a similar process in their Shire, and it was a 50-50 seat. The attachments on page 453 and page 491 is where you'll find where our community have requested something similar.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, item 6, notice of motion for following meeting. Neil? Item 7, matters behind closed doors. So, ask all that in the public gallery to leave. All right.
Hidden away, wasn't it? See this here.
Okay, so that brings a close to item 7, matters behind closed doors. There being no more business, I'll close the meeting at 5:04 and thank everyone for their attendance. Have a great week.